graffiti on your building, they will take down that graffiti and charge you for the removal, plus about a $10,000 fine a day for an anti-Olympic or a non-Olympic approved sign. Of course, they say that there's exceptions for celebratory signs. So if you want to celebrate the Olympics, they actually relaxed the sign restrictions. So you can have any kind of celebratory signs anywhere you want, but you certainly can't have a critical sign. For example, Coca-Cola is a sponsor. You can't wear a Pepsi shirt inside a venue. You certainly can't wear a Free Tibet shirt. So one thing they're doing to enforce these restrictions on civil liberties are massive amounts of surveillance and visitation of activists by our Olympic policing force. We have our Special Integrated Security Unit, Vancouver 2010 Integrated Security Unit, or the Olympic Police, and they've actually spent the majority of the last year visiting and harassing scores of activists. At one point, they approached both of us on the steps of City Hall. You go to City Hall to speak out in your democratic process against these very bylaws, and you're met by the police on the steps of City Hall who want to interrogate you. At one point in the summer, we were also revisited, and about 15 people in the Olympic Resistance Network were visited within 3 days. Not just going to your houses and calling you up, but going to your workplaces, letting you know, I know where you work, flashing your badge in front of your coworkers, saying, if you don't talk to me now, next time I'll come back and I'll have to talk to your boss. They had been surveilling people's coffee shops, not just your coffee shop, but your partner's coffee shop, where your friend works. And they would go and visit you in those locations as a way to let you know, not only do they know who you are and what you're doing, but they know where you hang out, they know where your friends hang out. One vocal critic's ex-wife from 15 years ago was visited. Several people have been visited just because they're friends of anti-Olympic critics that are public in the media. So the visitations are extreme. One World War II veteran wrote a letter to VANOC, the Vancouver Olympic Committee, complaining about something that he'd seen in the newspaper, and he received a visit from the police. A couple people wore our anti-Olympic t-shirts at the Victoria Anarchist Book Fair and were repeatedly visited by the police. So it really doesn't take much to get their attention, but I think they also have to do something to justify their massive budget. Additionally, you may have heard that Amy Goodman came up recently to speak and was stopped at the border and interrogated about what she was going to say. And they seemed to be very disappointed or unconvinced that she wasn't coming up there to protest the Olympics, because certainly they think everybody is involved in protesting the Olympics, and they don't want very much border traffic. Our people have had trouble getting down across the border before. And additionally, there's been heavy surveillance and intimidation in Indigenous communities, people dealing with land issues and sovereignty cases that might be unrelated to the Olympics. So you see that there's certainly an incredible crackdown on people's ability to resist, part of why it makes protesting so very important. So one of the groups we're with, the Olympic Resistance Network, kind of trying to be a network of different groups, anti-war, women's groups, community groups, anti-poverty issues, or corporate sponsors to target, to have their own events that people can network and support with. And one thing that is important, as Garth mentioned, they changed their travel initiative this summer. The Western Hemisphere Travel Initiative requires people to have passports, basically. There's a few other documents you can use, some arrangement with a green card and some other proof of ID, but you need to check the internet and make sure that you have what you need to get up there. If you don't have a passport yet, request one right away. And as you go through the border, it's always helpful to have an American flag or some kind of sports thing that expresses your great support for the Olympic cause, because as we know, a lot of people from Canada were stopped getting down to the WTO. There was a few hundred people that didn't make it through the border. We've had a lot of trouble crossing the border related to the Olympics already. So it's really important to do what you can to get through the border. As well, if people want to have local solidarity events, if they can't get through the border, that's really effective. So I think for people that understand the WTO, this international imposition of a certain type of corporate globalization, you should think of the Olympics as kind of the traveling, family-friendly circus of globalization. It's not something you'd be familiar with if it hasn't come to your town before. It's a smaller scale version, but it leaves the same long-term impacts, and it benefits the same corporate, military, and industrial complexes. So to resist the WTO and to resist the Olympics are really very similar things, and hopefully we can be reconnecting on these issues of our common opposition. And I know that the Olympic industry does allow these powerful interests to impose a lot on us and to take a lot from the public coffers, but it also gives us an opportunity to organize and to reunite on these issues. And if nothing else, perhaps we should be protesting the Olympics because they seem to be trying so very hard to stop us. So hopefully we'll have a good discussion and see you guys in February. Thanks.